We have three speakers with us today. There's me. I am the marketing manager at Jason's Travel Media, and we have two very special guests who are speaking with us. The first is Jim Brody, who is the Senior International Manager of Destination Marketing at TripAdvisor. He joined the company in 2005 and brought with him 15 years of experience working with destinations in the broadcast and internet areas. And he has over 20 years experience in travel and in media as a whole. He specializes in helping his clients navigate the social media terrain and helping them effectively use TripAdvisor and other Web 2.0 sites to market themselves. Welcome, Jim.
Hi, and thank you, Lara and Chris, for so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks. And our second guest is Chris Adams, who some of you may have heard before. He presented our first E-cademy about calculating the return on your marketing spend, which is now available online at the Jason's E-cademy website at myjasons.co.nz. He's the Director of Online Marketing for Miles Media, and that is the world's largest marketing agency working with destination marketing organizations. He was closely involved with the setup and strategic direction of Jason's first website as well early in the 1990s, and he's worked extensively in tourism in New Zealand and abroad over the years. Hi, Chris.
Great to be with you, Lara, and thanks again for the opportunity to connect. And Jim, good to connect with you virtually. I'm sorry you couldn't be here in person. But,
not as sorry as I am.
Another time, mate.
All right, and into the presentation. Firstly, I think everyone who's attending here today knows what online reviews are, but I just wanted to sort of put it into context. What we can think of reviews as these days is it's like word of mouth for the digital age. And because of the nature of the online medium, this word of mouth is amplified because more people can see it and it can move faster. We can get back to that point in just a second, but it's actually kind of a cool thing because of the medium, we can now actually listen to what people are saying. And in the one-on-one conversations previously, we couldn't actually hear what was going on out there in terms of the word of mouth being spread about us unless it just came back through a friend. Why is that important? Well, reviews are really important these days because of the reach that they have. And some of the studies that have been put out there, this is just the first, and Chris has a few to share with us, but in the State of the American Traveler study, which was done earlier this year, 46% of Americans said that traveler reviews influence their decisions in planning travel. So that's a huge number of people. It's also the #1 most important factor in leisure planning, according to that study, which is something that we just can't ignore. The other thing that makes it really important, which is great for operators, tourism operators, is that we can actually use it as customer research, because if we can hear what's going on out there and there are comments made, then if they're really happy with something, we know we can use that in our marketing because it's something really memorable. If we know that it's something that people are disappointed with and it's consistently coming up in reviews, it allows us to make some changes that can improve the experience of our visitors and then improve our business. I'm having problems with my slideshow. Here it is. Chris, I know you had some research about traveler reviews. Can you walk us through that?
Sure. Thanks, Lara. And just to stress a point you talked about, Lara, is that word of mouth has always been important. Many of the operators, I had a look through the review list, and it's great to see such a mix of operators from all around the country, slightly larger and smaller accommodation properties. All of those who've been in the business for any length of time know that word of mouth is absolutely critical. So all that traveler reviews are doing and social media is doing is really just adding to the size of the conversation. So people can share their comments, their reviews with more friends, more fans, more connections online, and that both enhances but presents opportunities and challenges. So if we look at the types of travel reviews, there's several different types, and I just wanted to emphasize that travel reviews live in a number of places that you need to be aware of. So travel reviews are on online travel agency sites such as Expedia, or for example Travelbug or Jason's. Travel review specific sites dedicated to travel reviews, and TripAdvisor is by far the world's largest example of that, and in fact the world's largest travel site, full stop. Consumers also seek out other forms of opinions and reviews, and that includes from travel professionals. So obviously if you're hosting, for example, writers or media, they're going to potentially write a review about you. People access that information. And then finally, there's the broader sort of social media landscape of blogs and related media. So people who might travel, and there's many, many examples of this. They can be either professional, semi-professional, or completely amateur. They write a travel blog, a travel diary, and share their experiences, which can include, obviously, observations about where they've stayed. So you've got all these different types, and we're going to be talking today about how to monitor and how to help manage and how to help maximize the positive and minimize the negative from these reviews.
Something I find really interesting about this slide, Chris, is that they measured 10 different influences of online features, and out of those 10, fully 5 of them are feedback from people who have been to the location.
Yeah, exactly. So this actually is the most influential online features and functionality on travel websites, and you can see, as you pointed out, Lara, that many of them relate to reviews, ratings, and feedback, and so that just emphasizes the importance of this general area. Just one other point, Lara, I think that's important to stress is obviously quality has always been important, and you know, in many cases guests might go away with observations either positive or negative in the past that they didn't share. Now those who are sharing it online, of course, have got a far larger audience, so focusing on your own customer service, your cleaning, all of those absolutely basic fundamental things about travel and tourism are just amplified in their importance.
Sure. The interesting thing about that is it's not to say necessarily that, you know, you must be 5-star and amazing all the time, but that whatever you're offering should match the expectation that you've set, whether it's by a star rating or in your advertising or anything else out there.
Yeah, and I'm sure Jim's going to pick up that point later on. Let's have a quick look at the New Zealand landscape in terms of the importance of travel reviews. Not quite as dominant as in North America, but you can see it's around 1/3 of people are accessing online reviews specifically of accommodation. A smaller number related to activities or destinations, but you can see that top number, and that just emphasizes that this is an extension of that traditional word of mouth, that people are sharing their comments, their reviews. And so obviously, you know, big part of the New Zealand travel landscape for domestic and for many of our international guests, even more important.
Yeah. So we know that they're important. Now the big question is, what should our listeners do about it, and how should they do it? So we have a few best practices that we're going to walk through today, the first of which is knowing where you stand. Jim and Chris, do you want to talk to us a little bit about these?
Well, sure, and thanks again for having me participate in this. I think the first thing to remember about this environment is that people are going to talk about you, whether you're paying attention to it or not, or whether, you know, you engage them or not. And I think it's not just on TripAdvisor. Obviously, as you can see from the slide there, it's a confluence of different online discussions, and it so happens that on here you're looking at the textual part of it, but I think you could probably put YouTube and Flickr and some of the other, and certainly Facebook and TripAdvisor both. These are all the sharing, not just of text, although that is the bulk of it, but of pictures and of videos. And it gives people an overall impression of the story. And as a destination person, I deal a lot with, you know, the story. What is the story New Zealand is trying to tell? What's the story that Rotorua is trying to tell versus the Coromandel versus Queenstown? And those stories are immersive experiences to begin with, and the internet just gives the people a chance not just to watch and listen to the story, but to add their own to it. That's, think about what Wikipedia is. If you don't participate, if you don't involve yourself, it will go on without you, and you won't have a say in how that story, which 99% of the time really pretty much is a positive one for most people, is going to influence your business. And I think that's very important. So that's the first thing. You have to pay attention, therefore, to what people are saying to you, what they're saying about you, where they're doing it, like the slide says, and that the positive and the negatives both matter. And that's one thing on TripAdvisor that we stress all the time, that it's not just the bad stuff, as much as that annoys you, hurts you, irks you, isn't true, is true, but it's the positive stuff too. It's being a human being and responding to other human beings that is really what this medium is all about.
Sounds a lot like just traditional customer service in a different medium, doesn't it?
Yeah, we often tell people, and we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but online, treat them just like you would if they were standing in the middle of your lobby, or they're in the middle of your office, or wherever you engage them. You know, if they're thrilled, take that the way you want to take that. If they have a criticism, take that the way you would take that in person and respond the way hospitality has taught you to respond. And if they have an out-and-out complaint, well, you know how to deal with that too. This is just later, and they're far away, which can make it tempting to maybe be a little more aggressive or a little more gruff or a little more defensive, depending on who you are. Don't do that. Instead, be positive, be hospitality-driven, and do what you do best, which is, you know, address issues that go wrong, confront them, and fix them for the client or the customer you're dealing with.
Sure, and the interesting thing about this, knowing where you stand, you know, we have all these different places that we can be listening, and I think at first it can seem really overwhelming. But the cool thing about it is that TripAdvisor, Jason's AA, Twitter, Facebook, all those places, those have profiles, and you can actually set alerts. So you're actually able to get alerts anytime someone talks on those profiles.
So the first thing you should do, Lara, before you do anything else, is go to Google, since that's the king of the entire internet in terms of showing you what else is going on, and register for a Google alert for your business. If you're not already doing that, every day you'll get an email that tells you where you're coming up that's new.
And the cool thing about that is that the Google alerts will catch magazine articles or bloggers that you might not have known even existed.
Everything. So if you just happen to have played host, or your destination did, to a cool festival that's in some niche, you know, parasailing with ski goggles on, I don't know, and you know, there's a guy who blogs about this and starts talking about your establishment because that's who they were a customer of. They might have, you know, 250,000 people who also do this reading them.
That might want to stay in your motel because yours was the great experience in the area where they have that every year.
You can leverage that because they'll be back.
Really cool. And we'll have a little bit in our white paper that we give out after this webinar that'll talk about how you can set up Google Alerts. So if anybody doesn't know how to do it or where to go, you can access the white paper and follow the steps to do it. We have a little poll next. I just wanted to, on this topic, find out from the people who are listening now, how many people monitor what's being said about their business online using any of these tools? Helen, can you set the poll up? So what we want everybody to do is just click your answer. Yep. Okay, well, wow, almost everybody has answered so far. And it looks like 87% of people are monitoring what's happening online. That's a great number. Chris, does that line up with numbers that you see overseas?
Frankly, that's higher than average. So I think obviously the people who are on the webinar today are the more proactive operators, and so you know the fact that they're proactive is illustrated by the fact that they're already monitoring. And you know, obviously reviews, ratings can be tremendously empowering. They can also be a little bit intimidating. We're going to talk about negative reviews, but they're also tremendously empowering, particularly for good operators. So they typically make the good operators stronger, and the weaker operators in a destination somewhat are obviously going to be, you know, have more challenges. So very interesting.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of our listeners today then are in the first step. They're doing really well in the best practices. They've covered it. And for those that are not quite at that step yet, it's not hard to get there, and just a little look-see at the white paper and some signing up to your profile pages, and you'll be on your way with that first step. So our second step, if I can get my slideshow to work nicely, there we go. Our second step is respond. So this is our second best practice. You know what's being said out there in the world, and now it's up to you to do something about it. Can you guys talk to this slide for us?
Well, now here's where we were talking about being responsive, whether a review is good or bad, or even worse than bad. The first thing I will tell you all is that our audience really appreciates it when people respond. Obviously, there are moments when you feel you really have to, but there are also some moments you feel like, oh my gosh, if I respond to this, I'm allowing it credibility. It has credibility, so because it's out there. So being responsive to something in that professional way, in a positive way, in a specific way. I know you said in the slide, be original. It doesn't mean you have to be hyper creative necessarily. Just be yourselves, I think, is the best way to put it, is what this is all about. And that is, it puts a human face behind the business that you're in. And not to knock the corporate people in the world, but we all know that travel is an industry dominated by SMMEs, small, micro, medium, and entrepreneurial businesses. And those businesses are human beings just like the consumers that frequent them, and our consumers, at least on TripAdvisor, really like the humanity of the response. So I think that's very important. I think the other thing that's important is don't skirt around the 900-pound gorilla in the room. If you feel that somehow this is not what happened, or it's wrong, or they're missing something, do it politely, but address the issue. If you feel that, this person is probably right, but I don't want to point it out because my ranking is going to drop or something, don't worry about that. Being honest is the most important thing you can do. And I think authenticity is really the hallmark of what user-generated content and social networking are about. It's almost as if we're all looking to get away from those canned messages that we find everywhere else. And I think that's what makes, in fact, I know that's what makes our website work, but I think it's what makes the medium as a whole work so effectively as well.
So
yeah,
Jim,
oh, sorry, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, obviously the operators listening today are very busy. In many cases, they're the marketing manager, they're the accountant, they're, running every part of the business. So if you're getting a reasonable number of reviews, not only on TripAdvisor and Jason's and other sites, what sort of rules of thumb would you suggest to which reviews to specifically respond to if you feel that you just cannot deal with them all?
Right. And that's certainly understandable. I would pick the reviews that obviously have to address something that feels urgent to you, especially if it's a negative one. And then I would also pick the reviews that highlight something positively that you feel is good for your business. Now, it would be great if you could respond to them all and just say thank you. Thank you for coming to stay with us. Thank you for taking the time to put up this opinion about your experience or tell your story. I think that really shows you care. But if you can't do that, if you only do the negative ones, that makes you look very defensive. So my opinion is look for the positive ones that highlight something. It might be a key message point about the property. It might be something people don't know that you want to be highlighted, or a package or something that you would like to highlight. They were there for their anniversary and they enjoyed their anniversary package. Well, that's your chance to say thank you again for experiencing this wonderful package with us, and we're thrilled. We hope you come back for your next anniversary. I think that's the kind of thing that keeps you in good stead without having to do it all.
Yeah, and I was going to emphasize, Jim, that setting aside a regular time to connect with the reviews. Obviously, if you're getting alerts come in and you can set the frequency of those alerts, that will help prompt you, whether it's daily, but certainly several times a week you need to be accessing this. And think about it in terms of an investment in your marketing and promotion. We've seen how important reviews and ratings are. So setting aside some dedicated time, even though obviously there's cost associated with that, you can really consider it an investment in your business, in your marketing, and your promotion that's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Chris. And the interesting thing, we have a webinar, not a webinar, a case study that speaks exactly to that practice that you're talking about a little bit later in the show. So I'd definitely like to come back to that. I had some questions for you, Jim. There's a stat here that says 78% of travelers said a good management response to a bad review actually makes them think highly of the property. And I think that's a really, really interesting point, and I know it came from some studies that you guys did about a year ago, because I think sometimes, even if you're going along really nicely and you have a lot of good reviews, and then you get this one really awful one, I think for an operator, it strikes you as, oh my gosh, this is the end of the world. This is not a good thing.
Right.
And they're not quite sure what to do with it.
Right.
So
well,
can you,
well, first of all, let me start off at the top by saying that, it hurts. We're in the business of making people happy. So when someone's not happy, it hurts, and it hurts more if they share that with lots of people. And even if it might be 100% true, you still would like it not to be, right? So your first response is to get all defensive. What we found over the course of the years, and TripAdvisor's been doing this for 11 years, is that it's the humanity of being a human being talking to another human being that makes a difference. And you've all probably seen your version of some apocryphal story about some company somewhere that didn't respond right on the internet or did something horrible, and someone really trounced them on the internet. I mean, there's a lot of examples with airlines like this. But when it comes to lodgings, people feel, in particular, restaurants too, actually, people tell us that it's good to know, they can see in the overall reviews that, you've got 200 reviews, 195 of them are great, 4 aren't that great, and there's one real clunker. They know anyway you have a great place to stay, but the fact that you took the time to respond to it in a good and thoughtful way means that you're actually practicing what you preach even when they're not there. And I think that's really what it means. It's a sense of security that you are at the level that most of the reviews say you should be. That hospitality matters to you, human to human.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to our next best. Actually, you know what? I'm going to ask a question. I think we should. Let's ask our listeners, do they participate in the conversation by responding positive or negative, or all the time? We've got a poll up right now. If you guys can all just sort of let us know what you do, that would be great. And the answers are almost up. Very interesting. So right now what I'm looking at is 25% of people respond only to negative reviews. Nobody said they respond only to positive. 38% said yes to both negative and positive. And then another 38% said no, they don't respond at all. Very interesting numbers there. Comments, guys? Anyone?
Well, I think...
Or is that kind of what you expect?
I'm not surprised about there not being people only doing positive reviews. Your visceral response, first and foremost, just to jump on the negative stuff, right? It's the same reason news broadcasts put the really awful story at the top, regardless of what else is going on. But it's the 38% that don't respond. I mean, you guys, it's going to happen with or without you. And without you there, whatever course those reviews take, they're going to take out of your control. This is the way. It's not the same as saying, I do this, you should come to my business because X called me today. But it's still, there's a version of that in there. So if you're not in there, responding and integrating your say into this conversation, other people are defining your business for you. So you can't let that happen either.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, just to emphasize the importance of being proactive, I know we were involved in a couple of research studies, and I think only 12% of North American accommodation properties indicated that they actively respond to reviews of any type. So again, even though 38% is not as high as we'd like, it's again showing
it's way
that
better,
the
huh?
audience. That's right.
So Kiwis are doing well. That's good to hear. So here's our third best practice. So after you've been listening and you've been responding, there's another step that you can take to ensure that you have the most success possible for your business out of reviews, and that is to train your team. Chris, you want to chat about this one?
Yeah, so the first thing I'd emphasize in terms of training a team is obviously having a clear sense of what sort of property you are, and ensuring that in all of your communication as well as your customer service, you and your team, and I know many of you, you, perhaps your wife or husband, you are the team. But basically ensuring that you've got a very clear sense about the service proposition for your property, your activity, what it is that you're about, and ensuring that your marketing, your promotion, your advertising sets expectations correctly. Because I think when you have a look at some of the problems that emerge in this area of reviews, many of them can be traced back to expectations from the client that perhaps are a little bit out of sync with the reality. Then obviously the reviews, as we've already emphasized, it's about using that as a research tool and learning from that in terms of you and your staff in terms of how you address issues. It might be cleanliness, it might be promptness or courtesy, it could be features or fittings, for example, in the property itself. Obviously looking at ways in which you can take that feedback and improve. So Jim, from your experience, what are the sort of specific practical ways that properties or businesses have used feedback from TripAdvisor to improve their business?
Well, first of all, it's funny because before I ever knew about TripAdvisor, I saw a hotel doing this I was staying in. They will look at a review and they will have team meetings about what people are pointing out that's good and bad, and they will train the staff on those points. So in other words, let's say the review says, people could be a little more courteous or take the time to talk to me a little longer, or maybe people are great and they satisfy me because every time I see them there's a smile, and even the housekeepers in the corridors say good morning. Those are the things that these hotels will go back and forth about in order to keep everybody up on the type of service. Another thing that I think is really terrific is to use them sort of on a quarterly basis as almost as a focus group. And because it's very easy to get lost in the weeds of one review versus another, right? Because you get concerned about the specific things that a reviewer will say. But then it's good to take the time and sit down with all of the reviews that are new in that 3-month period and make tick marks. How many times did they say they loved the way the room was decorated, or they loved the view from the window, or they loved the way they were greeted at the desk, or the things they didn't like, the shower didn't get hot quickly enough, or the mattress was too hard, whatever it is. And you can, by ticking it off, you can see if you have 50 reviews or 20 reviews or whatever it is in a 3-month period, what's standing out for them, and that'll in turn tell you what to work harder on and what to emphasize and what to try to fix. It's a really great way to do that.
Yeah, and anytime you get a negative comment on something, and if it's one that's isolated, if you have that system that you're talking about, you know what needs to come first and what things can be left till next year or till you have, the next round of budget to be able to handle it.
Right.
And other things,
it's a very scalable way to deal with it.
Oh yeah, it sounds great. And the other thing that's really cool about it is that when you get the positives, it gives you your headlines for your marketing. You know what stands out to people, what makes you different from your competition.
Well, if they're telling their story for you, right,
exactly,
then this is your opportunity to take that story, package it up the way you think fits with how you see your story, and support your marketing that way.
Really cool.
So a good little tip can be to keep a little document. It could be a spreadsheet, it could be a Word document, and just capture the feedback and try and have a column for where you've got, what actions you're going to be taking around that, and that can be a good way to sort of collate, particularly feedback from multiple sites. So I've seen spreadsheets. You can set up a document like a Google Docs document, or you can just literally have it handwritten on some sort of spreadsheet that you can share with your key staff, and that way you've got a sort of checklist of areas of attention and what you're planning to do. Some of them you can immediately deal with, other issues might take a little bit more time, a little bit more money.
Cool. So that's step 3 in our 4-step process of following best practices with reviews. Our final step, or tip, is about being proactive. And what I mean by being proactive, we're talking about instead of just letting the reviews happen or not letting people know that you're out there to be reviewed and just waiting for them to trickle in, you can put practices in place that encourage people when they are happy or upset or any of the rest of it to go out and find a place where they can give you the feedback that you're looking for. Chris, would you like to?
Yeah, I think there's, John Samford, who many of the audience will know. John always used to talk about some age-old research that if someone's happy or delighted with a service, they'll tell 3 or 6 of their friends. If they have a problem or a concern, they're going to tell 12, 15, 20. And of course, as we've discussed, that's just amplified online. So there obviously can be a tendency to get extremes, people who are delighted and people who are upset. And so being proactive ensures you get a broader cross-section of reviews, and you tend to get positive reviews from people who, they had a good time. They might not have, had the most exciting experience of their life, but they were more than satisfied, and they're very happy to share that if they're prompted by you. So I think this basically enriches the conversation.
Right. There are 3 touch points. I'll just add that. One is for a lodging in particular, since I suspect most of you are lodgings. There's a touch point of in the room, we love it when you ask people to do TripAdvisor, but we also realize that people have all sorts of ways they like to communicate, and just sort of give them the idea. You're enjoying your stay. Go online and talk about it when you get home. Don't ask them to do it in their hotel room, because we won't let things from hotel IPs go live usually. But if you do that, and then when they're checking out, it's like the restaurant rule of thumb. If any of you have ever been wait staff at a professionally run restaurant, you know that one of the things the restaurant manager used to say when they had suggestion cards at the table is, your job when you're asking them if there's anything else before they ask for the check is to remind them that comment card is there unless they look unhappy. Well, it's the same idea. If they're unhappy and they want to write about it, they're going to do it anyway. If they're really overjoyed and they want to write about it, they're going to do it anyway. But if you see people at the desk and they're smiling and they say they had a wonderful stay, those are the people to remind, hey, I hope you had a great time, and we definitely would appreciate it if you go online and talk about it. And finally, the third point is in emails when you follow up. Put a link to the TripAdvisor review. Show them where the YouTube channel is. I know some properties have a link of 6 or 7 different places they ask for reviews. Go in there and tell them, we hope you enjoyed your stay. We're glad you came. We hope to see you again, and we hope to hear from you online. And I think those are the 3 touch points that are very useful.
And for our operators who are listening in today, that point that you just brought up about putting a little badge in your email, on the Jason's website in the back end, we'll explain how to get to it in the white paper. We actually have something like that as well that anyone can log in and just pull and insert into their email, and it'll link straight to their page on Jason so they can get a review.
And Lara, obviously everyone who's booked through the Jason site, it's true to say they get a follow-up email that
Yes,
prompts them to go into the Jason site and offer their feedback there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Anyone who books actually through the Jason site, through the Holiday Guide site, or if you have a Jason's or Holiday Guide widget on your website, we also track people who book through there, and we prompt them after their stay to please come back and let us know how it went.
So I know you've got some case studies, haven't you, Lara, to really
do.
talk about the specific ways in which operators handled things.
Yeah, we do. First case study today is a case study of an operator on JSON. This is an operator who's down in New Plymouth. And we were looking through our reviews and we saw, gosh, these people are just replying all the time. This is great. Look at the conversation going on their site. This is specifically what Jim was talking about earlier, where you reply to the positives and the negatives. And one thing that I thought was really interesting about this slide was the fact that these reviews were left over a span of time. But if you look at the replies, it looks like the operator takes a little bit of time each week and sits down and does them all in one hit, because you see Sunday 20th November on every one of the replies. And that's okay, because that's just time management, and sometimes that's the way it goes.
They want to hear from you when they can, not immediately.
Yeah.
That's not why you put a review. If you're really angry and you want immediate response, you get in touch with the owner in person.
Sure, exactly. So that's an easy one, and that's just putting it in practice. This is also, if you're interested in understanding how JSON's reviews work, you'll notice that on these reviews there's a label here that says JSON's verified. What that means on our website is that that person has either booked through JSON's, and so we know that they were really a guest, or that an operator, they've come in from a third-party site or wherever and they've decided to leave a review, and that the operator has seen that and said, yep, indeed, that is someone who stayed here. There are some pros and cons to verified and unverified. When you require only verified reviews, you don't tend to get as many, and I know that's part of TripAdvisor's philosophy, is to get the volume, and that will self-police itself. Is that right?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. The whole point is you know, the wisdom of the mob gives you a variety, the spectrum that you need of content, and the good stuff shines through, and when it has to, the bad stuff shines through, and that seems to be the case. Yeah,
yeah. And on JSON's, we kind of have a blended system, so we allow unverified reviews, and they go up, and that's fine. We just don't call them verified unless it's someone who booked through JSON's or they've been confirmed by the operator.
And I'm sure, too, Laura, you'll point out that with our site, with your site, with a lot of sites, you know, there are rules of behavior. You can't be a registered user in good standing unless you follow those rules of behavior, and if you violate them, you no longer get to post reviews.
Exactly, and we actually, if stuff is truly not good, as in just it doesn't follow the rules, they're using wrong words, they're saying personal things, that sort of thing, then we will redact that section of the review.
Yep,
if it violates policy.
Yes, we have a group of people who do that sort of thing too.
Cool. So here's the difficult case study. This is actually an operator of ours who raised this and was kind enough to let us use a review. This is something that happened to them on TripAdvisor recently, and the context behind this is that pretty much all of their reviews are highly positive, and then they got this one and they said, what am I supposed to do with that? And we're looking to you to help offer a little bit of advice.
You know what? It's interesting because I wonder if there's a linguistic issue here too. But anyway, such is life. That's a weird word to use. Sneaky. So let's see. Very, very, very happy with the internet, the washing machine, but they don't like. Their room was okay. They needed a fridge, but they hated the food. They thought it was too expensive. They didn't like the fact that it got recommended to go to a restaurant across the street because it was too pricey, and then that they didn't like the other places in town. Well, so if I was the owner of this property, I would go online and say, gee, you know, I'm sorry you didn't have the best time ever, but you know, we want to recommend a great experience. We're sorry you didn't like it, and I'm looking at this slide, and that's exactly what you should have done. Again, you know, we recommend it based on what we think you will like, and we don't want to send you to some place you won't like. So, you know, if it costs more and we didn't realize that was important, then, you know, we would have sent you. And I mean, you could see how hospitality-driven this response is. It's perfect. Thank you. We're sorry it wasn't what you were looking for, and we hope to see you again. And I think that's terrific.
Cool.
You know. That's what you want out of a response. What you don't want is, you stupid son of a you-know-what. You don't know what you're talking about. You were never here. You never stayed here. I don't like you. I didn't like you when you were here. You know, that's just stuff you need to avoid. I mean, but it's very tempting to do that sometimes because they're far away. Yeah. And you think, you think, well, what are they going to do? They're not going to come back anyway. But the problem is that's not what people want. See, then you look like the type of person nobody wants to give a credit card to, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what you want to avoid.
This was a sample response that we in the marketing team at Jason's put together as sort of following the TripAdvisor advised steps, because you guys are the world experts on, you know, how to get reviews and also how to deal with them properly without making yourself look awful to future customers. And I'm glad that you thought it was good then.
Yeah, no, it's really good. That's exactly what you should do. You know, I mean, you should never be too defensive, but you should embrace that they didn't enjoy it, because you're not going to change your mind. You know, it's not about them anymore. So now it's about them and everybody else, and that's the difference. Excuse me.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this review, we thought, this response was, not only does it address the issues, but some of the things that the person was complaining about were actually things that the property had offered as almost like a service. And so we used it to almost highlight some of the personal service, because they did take time out to say, where do you want to go? And here's some advice about where you can eat in the town. And, you know, we found out that this property actually serves organic fruit. And if anybody's a real fan of organics, you know that sometimes the organic fruit doesn't always look as beautiful, but usually it tastes really good. So this day there may have been an oversight. However, it was an opportunity to lead in and say, we do organic food, and we'll give you personal recommendations. And for other readers who may be reading this sort of outside the norm review, then they see how well the operator can respond to it and their good customer service, and that can actually really benefit them.
Right. I think it's important here to highlight authenticity is the key. Don't spin. That's an American word. I'm sorry if some of you don't know what I mean. It's okay to use the, this is my recommendation. It's great. Now, no one's going to stop you unless you're violating the codes of behavior on our site, but it's okay to highlight something positive and build a positive out of a negative, but spinning where you say, no, don't look at that, look over there, that's different. And I wouldn't recommend that.
Right.
And remember that every property in the world, no matter how exceptional, has been dealing with negative reviews, negative customers. I mean, inevitably you cannot please everybody. And as Jim has already emphasized, if you run an exceptional property or you work hard at basically doing what you do well and responding, then the positives will vastly outweigh any negatives, and people are reasonable. They'll look through the reviews, and if there's one or two that are negative, if you've responded courteously and not made it personal, then they'll look past that and to see the full picture.
Very cool. Guys, I think we've got a question from a listener right now. There's one here that says, if people write emails with compliments, is it okay to ask them to comment online again, or can you transfer what they said to your website yourself? What are you guys' feelings on that?
Well, you can't. I mean, on TripAdvisor, you can't write your own reviews. So you can.
But can you ask the person to go and repeat that online?
Sure, if they've already said it. I think it's not kosher to offer, you know, promotions. Do this and we'll give you, you know, a discount for your next visit. I don't like that. I think that's the authenticity out of it. But if they've emailed you and they said, you know, we loved our dinner on the beach, et cetera, then, you know, you can ask them to go online and say that, you know, just do it the right way.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly. And as Jim's emphasized, you know, basically you should never offer promotions or gifts or discounts. Basically be proactive, as we've discussed, and you'll find that the reviews will come.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, if anyone else has any questions, we'd love for you to send them in now. And I'm going to go over just a little wrap up here. And as questions come in, we will certainly take some time out to answer them. That is the core of the presentation today. And we'll move into some closing thoughts now.
So,
first step.
Jim, I just wanted to get you to emphasize, obviously, if I'm going to be proactive on TripAdvisor, a key step is to claim your owner's page, as the slide outlines. So can you just briefly talk about the steps involved in doing that?
And I'm sorry, I got interrupted by my 4-year-old. What did you just ask me?
Claiming your owner's page,
Oh,
basically
okay.
the importance of that.
Right. So this is your nice slide. This is your and it's very easy to get to. There's 1,000 links to do it. My favorite way is just search up your property and go to the bottom of the middle column. There's a link right there. It says, "Are you the owner?" What you do is, this is your centerpiece. It doesn't cost money to use it. You'll get an email every time you get a review. You can go in there and respond to the review right from there. You can, if you want to complain about it or ask that it get taken down or whatever, it's your conduit to any questions you have for our content team about it. This is not a hard thing to do. It does require just a few minutes, and you'll be glad you did. It's much easier than trying to get in touch any other way. We have dedicated teams that are there to work with you and respond to your requests, and they'll do it. It might take them a little time, and of course it's just a very easy, user-friendly way to put up your responses.
And Jim, if you've got concerns about the reviews not being 100% kosher, if you've got concerns about who may actually be posting reviews, this is the place where you can.
Right. If you this is and we actually care, and we actually do want to help, and we're constantly sort of looking through things. That doesn't mean we're going to take it down just because you don't like it. There are rules. I don't know what they all are because, frankly, the people that do this are anonymous. They're anonymous not just to hotel owners, but to us at TripAdvisor as well, for a good reason. That way they can't be influenced. We think of them as our, our sequestered jury, if you will. So they can look at it objectively and decide whether the review should stay up, if they want to make modifications to it, or they want to take it down entirely.
Can you tell me a little something about when people log in and they claim their page? I know they can update their business details. They can put photos up. So it basically is two sides of the conversation. You have your photos. You have the photos of people staying there. You get the full range.
Right.
If someone feels that, let's say, I see you have hotels, B&Bs, inns, etc., and we've had someone ask, how do I change the category I'm in?
Right. That happens on that page too. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
It's not up to them. It's up to us. We have specific, it's a database at heart, so what makes you a hotel, or here's a good one, makes you a B&B and not an inn, or vice versa, right? That's kind of a big gray area. It's very specific with TripAdvisor, and they'll look at it and they'll decide you're an inn, you're not. I mean, that's it.
Yeah, so you guys have built it knowing things about your end users and where they come from, and are trying to keep consistency that way.
Right. I mean, we just don't, if we let everybody decide what they were, you'd have all these people claiming to be resorts that weren't, because resorts get more attention in a lot of destinations. Think of the South Pacific or the Caribbean. And people that are claiming to be hotels, because I think that gets them more attention. So it's like you can't lie and say, which we all know happens, that you're in the next biggest town when you're not in it. Because you put it in your name doesn't make it true, and we stick very specifically to the geography.
Cool. Here's another question that we just got. Is there a large population that posts reviews on TripAdvisor but then does not book their accommodation there? I would say yes, because TripAdvisor really isn't a booking site at all, is it?
No, we don't have any booking on TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor is simply a research and information site. You can link out and choose to book from the text links. Those are advertisers, right? That's how we make our money. That links mostly to OTAs and, the online travel agencies and the big guys like Expedia and some tour operators, depending on where the link is. Some people use us and go right to their travel agent. It depends on who they are.
And when you claim your page on TripAdvisor, you can actually have a direct booking link to your website, can't you?
Yeah. No, you have to buy that. That's a purchase thing. It's called an enhanced listing, and unfortunately, I don't really spend much time with them, so I can't really tell you how they're priced or what they cost. But I do know they're purchased by the year.
Cool.
And it depends on how many rooms you have.
All right, well, it looks like we have a flood of questions coming in, so I'm going to let those keep coming, and I'm just going to go over our final slide here. And this is on the Jason side, how we help you manage your online reviews. On Jason's, you can actually log into the back end, and we've got a new set of help videos, and if you go to the one about managing your online reviews, you can walk through the steps there. There are a number of things that we do to help you both gather reviews and also manage them and use them to market on your website. In order to know where you stand, we do always send an email notification if a user posts a review to your listing. If you're not receiving those emails, give us a call and we'll see if maybe they've gone into the spam box and we can help you whitelist our server name. The other thing that we can do is we support your ability to respond. When you log into the back end in the client section of JSONs, you can go to View Reviews, and when you go to View Reviews, you can see all the reviews that have come in, and you have a space where you can respond to those reviews there in the back end. We'll supply you with some information about training your team after today. We have a recording of this webinar that will be up on myjasons.co.nz, as well as these slides, and some white papers with step-by-step on setting up Google Alerts, some best practices, some sample answers, and things along those lines. And in terms of proactivity, we help you guys get more reviews by sending a follow-up email to anyone who books through either a Jasons or Holiday Guide widget, the Jasons website and the Holiday Guide website. And we also supply a widget within our backend, which I believe TripAdvisor also does, so that you can show reviews on your own website that have happened on our site. And if you have any questions about that, watch the video, and other than that, you can follow up with our help desk at 0800-JASONS or helpdesk@jasons.com. Lynn, are there any other questions that we should answer today that you've had come in?
No, I think we've actually covered all the questions.
Great. Again, white papers are at myjasons.co.nz. Any questions or advice, contact the help desk at Jasons or ask your Jasons account rep. I think we're done. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate you taking the time today, Jim and Chris, to speak with us.
It was an honor, even from far away. It really was. Thank you so much. I always enjoy these, and I'm so sorry I can't be there this year, and New Zealand's beautiful. And I'll get back there. I do promise that.
Thanks,
well, we
Jim.
Can't wait to meet you in person.
And thanks, everybody, for being on the call today. Obviously, as we've stressed, you're the proactive one, so take the challenge and use this feedback from your guests as a way to make a great business even better. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for your expertise today, Chris and Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, and we'll be ending the webinar now. Counting you out. 4, 3, 2, 1.